Paul, you just released some pretty amazing financials, or amazing for the times. Do you want to touch on them and at all, and kind of go into the high levels of what was great, things you guys are going to be working on going forward?
Yeah, for sure. So I think, your comment about for the times is spot on. So, during, I would say February, March, the world was becoming aware of COVID-19 and its implications. And we were as well, primarily because our customers were letting us know, here's some of the things coming down for them. So in our industrial commercial segment, most of our customers had to shut down their plants. So that would include, groups like Toyota and kind of industrial companies that weren't essential service providers. So, anyone in the food industry is okay. Anyone outside of that, it was pretty tough. So we are an essential service provider, which means we're taking care of energy and emissions. So in the quarter, what we really strived for was we knew that revenue, would take a slight hit in the quarter, not the year. And we really focused on being very financially disciplined, cutting costs. And we ended up with a positive quarter on the EBIT side, which we're very proud of. And I think if you look around in small cap Canada, that's not easy to do. You really have to be disciplined. You have to manage your expenses, and public and small are not always conducive to being able to do that. So we're proud of that. Now we have some work to do on the revenue side. So on the revenue side, what we basically found is we haven't had any order cancellations, but if customers had their plants shut down for 2 or 3 months, we're now seeing that activity come back to life. So we think we're going to have our best year ever, despite COVID, but certainly there's lumpiness in the quarter.
Very interesting. Do you want to kind of touch on, I guess, you did already, but maybe some more of the actual numbers, how they compare to maybe last year's or previous quarters, and kind of go from there? I mean, you did just touch on, the fact that things are going to be delayed and you're still going to at least expect to crush the rest of this year, but do you want to touch on any of the comparative?
Yeah, so I think, we were down in revenue, roughly just under $1 million. So I think it was 2.8 versus 3.7. But interestingly enough, our gross margins went up from, compared 60% to about 51. So what that shows is the financial discipline in the business. We have a high gross margin business. And the EBITDA was almost the same as last year, meaning that by cost cutting and being very prudent, we're able to match the earnings numbers. So I think what that shows investors is anytime you have a high gross margin business, any acceleration in revenue is really going to help your bottom line take off. So the message we want, for investors is we don't have to raise capital to run our business. There's financial discipline in that. There's a EBIT positive, break even on cash flow. When we raise money, it's because we're doing something accretive. It's not to pay the bills or to pay salaries. It's because we've got something on the horizon, like a strong acquisition or some kind of customer development, where we need to put some capital to work. But I think it shows financial discipline. The bottom line numbers were very close. And, for this year, we're expecting our best year on the revenue side and the earnings side.
Oh, that's amazing. I think that's a, pretty good high level. Do you want to talk about any comparisons? Do you want to go into, other companies that have came out, within the industry with their financials, what they were?
Yeah. So, I hate to be the guy that picks on competitors, but I would say, when investors make their choices, right, because they're allocating capital in their portfolio, the way they should look at it is, is the company burning up a lot of cash flow to operate? And if they are, where's that cash flow going? So from Kontrol's perspective, you can see from the financials, we're EBIT positive. We're not burning up cash flow to run. And we're in the middle of an accretive acquisition where the raise is going really well. So once we close that acquisition, we'll add around 800,000 to 900,000 of new cash flow net per year. And, makes the year look good. Plus all the orders that are coming in the back half of the year that COVID had displaced. So I would say, if investors look around, and all small caps have reported their first quarter now, and you look at the amount of money that some companies are burning through, it's a good indication. Stocks don't always reflect that in the short term. And I would say the other thing we're working really hard on, and we'll have, some updates coming shortly, is extending our debenture, the October 2020 debentures. And I think once we announce that formally, it'll give the market some insight that we're managing our balance sheet. We're not burning up cash to operate. There's a really good path to our best year ever. And I think all those things are, the financial discipline that we're practicing in the business, which, to be honest, and we're not patting ourselves on the back at all, but if you were to say to me during the COVID crisis, if you remember back in March, everyone thought everything was going to zero, right? Our stock was down to 20 cents, and it was just that panic for about 2 weeks. And if you told someone back then, well, Kontrol is going to be EBIT positive and maybe have its best year in 2020, they would have said, well, you're nuts, right? So the idea is, we're here, we're long-term owners, we're building a business, we're financially disciplined, and we think it's a pretty good quarter given the circumstances, in the market.
Yeah, and I think, something worth mentioning, at least in my 2 cents, and you can touch on this as well. When you compare, yes, we're still in COVID, but you compare, March to April to May. March was by far the craziest month, where everything was like full shutdown. You couldn't go here, you couldn't go there, you couldn't find toilet paper, this or that. And a lot of businesses were adapting to what they thought was going to be the next couple months. Even in March, a lot of people are just given the whole month off or whatever it would be, and then they started picking things up here and there in April and May as well. So I think that's what it's saying is March was like the full shutdown month.
Yeah.
Then yes, people have been under lockdown. You've been able to do some things here and there, but businesses started to actually get their feet back under them and moving forward, which I think is great. So I think this was great. Is there anything you want to touch on in terms of, additional financial stuff?
I would just say, the way to think about Kontrol, and I stress this all the time, is we're a year-over-year story. And why is that? Well, because we're building the business. And so I know people get sometimes overly concerned, with quarter over quarter. One thing I can say that's a fact is every year that you look at that we've been public, we've had a better year than the last year. So we have a track record of putting up 4 better years than the one before that. And I think we're going to do it again. So I think if people understand where we're going, how we build the business, how we deliver, they can see 2020, there's a path to a better year than last year. And that's what we're working on, and that's despite COVID and some of the market craziness that we've experienced this year.